All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome back to another live stream. I know it's been a while. I apologize for that. It's I've been busy, and to be transparent, like the hardest part about these streams is the creative element, if you will, where I'm trying to do stuff that is meaningful and applicable to you all in a way that's not really like super academic per se, and trying to come up with ideas for that is can be really challenging. But anyway, so today I wanted to get back to streaming here with a little bit of a review topic. Now, this is something that we've not done before in any of these streams, but everything that we're going to be doing today is leveraging technology and such in a way that we have done before. Now, when I say when we've done it before, it's actually been probably close to like 15 months since we've done like these sorts of streams. So I think I thought it was good anyway to like step back and kind of review what we've done before in this new sort of capacity, and like also kind of as a means to see how things have kind of changed in the Gen AI space since the last time we've kind of approached this. So today we are going to be generating a corpus of documents very quickly using generative AI. So this is not really a conducive thing to do in like an interface like ChatGPT. I kept trying to think even like I've not even really settled on what I want to do yet. Well, as of like right before this stream, I didn't know if I wanted to do like a cookbook, like a literal cookbook, like a cookbook full of recipes, or like I'm thinking just to keep it simple, we might do like a fact book about the 50 states. Now imagine trying to do that in ChatGPT. If you wanted to get like have ChatGPT create like a fact book for each of those states, what you would have to do essentially is more or less like keep copying and pasting and copying and pasting and copying and pasting until you did all 50. And that's not really I mean, it's possible, but it's all super time consuming and not something that we necessarily want to spend our time on. So what I want to show you in this stream is how, again, we're going to be using technologies that we've already used before. We're going to use Python. We're going to use it's not going to be overly complex Python. It's going to be relatively simple Python code. For this stream, I am going to continue to use the OpenAI API. I actually am going to show you how to create your own API key in this stream, just because the interface has changed a little bit, and so I want to kind of get people a little bit familiar with that. Although, even though we're going to be using OpenAI, just know that the concepts here are the same if you wanted to use like the Anthropic API or one of the models out of AWS Bedrock, something like that. So lost my train of thought there. Yeah, Python, the OpenAI API. And I'm still a fan of LangChain. And I'm actually thinking about doing a whole stream on the state of Gen AI tools in general, because there's been some that like, for lack of a better word, kind of like flared up and then went away. And then there are some that kind of stuck through and etc. So I would say LangChain has been one of those that I wouldn't say it's necessarily taken off, but it's also not faded away either. And I'm actually glad to see also, and I'll show this here in a little bit with code, that LangChain is fortunately kind of settled in the sense that like they were doing some major iterations and refactoring early on, which made it kind of challenging for us whenever we were trying to figure out our code. But in the last year or so, I've noticed that they've not, I mean, they're making updates, of course, but they've not really done any major refactors or anything like that. So that's good news. So I'll probably do another stream on that. But anyway, let's get into today's stream. So we are going to do the, just to keep things simple, the 50 states, and making like, we're going to do like a fact sheet, or not like a fact sheet. What do I want to say? It's like for lack of a better term, like a guidebook about each of the 50 states. So what I'm envisioning is a blurb for each of the states, of course, and then just to kind of illustrate a different way of generating information, maybe doing some trivia questions as well. So generating like 5 or so trivia questions about each of the 50 states. All right, so let me get into sharing my screen here. All right, so I'm going to be working in VS Code like I normally do. I already have, here, let me go ahead and minimize this. I created a new folder in this GenAI miscellaneous directory called Doc Generation. I'll upload this to GitHub when I am completed with the stream. The GitHub's already out there, but this content is not. So you can see when I toggle it open, there's nothing in there right now. And as you all know, I like to work out of Jupyter Notebooks. I'm going to, and again, Jupyter Notebooks are great for experimentation purposes, for teaching purposes, for discovery, learning sorts of purposes. Jupyter Notebooks are not really ideal for production kind of purposes, though. So in our case, not a big deal. So we will continue on anyway. Now, by the way, I am taking questions if on YouTube or LinkedIn, if you have any. So I'm going to create a new file in here. I'm going to call it state, well, what do I want to call it? State guidebook. I guess I'll call it guidebook. I don't know what else to call it other than guidebook. Yeah. Okay, so I guess that is one thing I did want to do. So I'm going to be using UV here. So I think I've showed this off in previous streams before, but UV is more of a modern way to leverage Python and Python dependencies and virtual environments. So I'm working here on my MacBook Pro. As you all know, I really prefer to work on my iPad just because I like the experience, although it's just not perfect for, I can't live stream from an iPad. So I have off on the right, you can't see, I have a Mac Mini sitting over here that I typically like SSH into from my iPad. And so where was I going with that? Oh, I already created the UV environment over here on the Mac Mini, but I've not created on this MacBook Pro. So you can see here, I do have a PyProject TOML file here, and this is how that UV knows the dependencies that you need and such. So I'm leveraging Python 3.12 here, and these are all my dependencies. So if I want to create a new UV environment, I'm going to open up my terminal here just as part of VS Code, and then I'm going to run the command UV. What is the command? UV venv Python 3.12 venv. Okay, so that has created the virtual environment, and you can see that we have our venv off here on the left in the left navigation. And then I'm going to go ahead and activate the source, the virtual environment, running that source.venv bin activate command. Again, this is not really anything particular to machine learning or anything. This is just standard kind of Python best practices. If you're a Python developer, you're probably familiar with venv and virtual environments here. All right, so I've done that. So in order to get this synced up appropriately, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to run UV sync. And what that is doing is, you can see really, really quickly, it is referencing the PyProject terminal file to install all the dependencies that I need. And the reason I like UV specifically is it does it really, really fast. So you can see, even though we had quite a number of dependencies there, as I was talking, they have already completed downloading and installing. So that is good. Now, I do want to create a special Jupyter kernel that we can make use of here. So what I'm going to, I do need to do it, another UV add ipykernel as such here. I hope you all can see that all right. In fact, let's see if I can make it a little bit bigger. All right. That should be a bit bigger for you all. It's like old man size for me now, but all good. All right, so we've added the ipykernel. So I'm going to run Python, basically this Python environment here. I'm going to change some names here. So I'm going to call this GenAI Miss, and then I'm going to call this GenAI Miscellaneous. Okay, and what this is basically doing is it's allowing us to set up a Jupyter kernel based off of our UV virtual environment that we can make use of here. So you can see, even though I've already created the notebook, we've not selected the kernel. So sometimes this can be a little bit finicky, or I tried saying finicky and fickle at the same time. So you can see that my virtual environment is not coming up here. So sometimes you just got to keep trying. All right, so it's recommending the wrong one. So I'm going to refresh. And I just saw it there. Oh, wait, there it is. All right, so the GenAI Miscellaneous, then this is the one that we just created. Okay, so, all right, I'm going to go ahead and call, I'm going to make a couple of cells here. I'm going to add a markdown cell here at the top, and I'm going to call this Notebook Setup. Okay, so this is just going to be how we are setting ourselves up for success as doing our imports and everything that we need in order to get going. So we're not going to be, like I said, we're going to be making use of LangChain, we're going to be making use of OpenAI, and then we're basically just using standard Python functions, nothing fancy. So I'm going to import a couple of packages, and I'm not even sure I'll need one of these, but I'm going to import it anyway. So I'm going to import OS. If you're not familiar with OS, that stands for operating system. It's basically Python's way of running shell-like commands to interact with your operating system. And this is going to be important for us because the thing that I like to do whenever I'm creating a whole big corpus of documents is I like to make sure that I'm saving my content as it goes along. So like, let's say with my 50 states here, I get through the first 30 and some sort of bug happens. This is specifically why I'm concerned, because every once in a while a bug happens or there's a timeout issue or whatever. It would be both cost inefficient and time consuming to regenerate the content for all those 30. So what I like to do is I like to save the content as it's coming in. So that way, if the code fails for whatever reason, or we have a timeout or whatever, then we can run that same code block again. And we are only focused on getting the new content. It basically just skips over everything that we've already created. And so that's why OS is really important here. All right, so I'm going to also import JSON because we're going to be working with JSON structures here. I'm going to import YAML. So I'll tell you why in a little bit why we're doing that. And then I'm going to import, what else do I want to import here? Let me look at my notes. The LangChain stuff. So and the way that we're going to interact with OpenAI is directly through LangChain. So I'm going to do import LangChain output parsers. From. My apologies. All right, so we're going to import the comma separated list output parser, and then I'm going to do from LangChain. Yeah, I think I actually do want that. And then from LangChain OpenAI import chat OpenAI. And you might be wondering, why are we using LangChain here? And I hope that'll become apparent here in a little bit as we start to actually make use of it. So we'll get to that when we get to that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and did my Pi project not have LangChain? Oh, apparently it did not. All right, so we got to add LangChain here. That's simple enough. So I'm going to clear this out. We've already got our virtual environment activated, so I'm just going to do UV add LangChain and LangChain OpenAI. Those are the two that we specifically need. And now you can see that my Pi project toml has been updated. And then I should be able to restart my kernel here, and we should all be good now. Okay, there we go. We're all good. All right. So we've imported the packages. Now we need our API key. So like I said, we're going to be using OpenAI here. So I have already created an account with OpenAI, but I'm gonna try walking this through as what's the word? Like from as beginning as possible. Just understanding that I've already done a few things. So like signing up for the account itself, I'm not necessarily going to be able to demonstrate since I've already signed up for an account. But anyway, this is OpenAI.com just to prove. So I'm scrolling down, and this is like you can see all their other things. So this is not ChatGPT. And then if I go into, I believe it's the API platform here, and then we go into start building, and then we can log in here. And so I'm going to log in with my Google account. Okay, so you can see here that I've gone ahead and logged in, and we've got a number of things that are going on here. Now, the one thing that I want to call out that is, I don't want to say brand new, but it's definitely new. It's a more recent addition than like when OpenAI first launched, and that is you can see up on the left here, you can see my name, so that's my account name, and then you see this thing called a default project. So basically what OpenAI has done here is now you can add multiple projects here. And to be transparent, I'm not entirely sure what the entire value of a project is, but I can tell you the one benefit for sure is that you can look at price segmentation or cost spend, I guess, if you will, by project. So if I go over to my dashboard here, and then I look at my, where is it? I don't know. So I don't play a whole lot in this interface, so apologies that I'm kind of poking around looking for this. So maybe it's in settings. Okay, settings, billing. Okay, and then billing history. No, that's not what I want. There's one. It's somewhere in here where you can like see how much you've spent per project. I don't know where it's at though. Okay, I don't know where it's at. It's somewhere in here though. Okay, so a couple things that I want to call out here. I've already done this for myself. So if we go down to like usage here, or not usage, maybe limits. So the one thing I want to call it here, so whenever OpenAI first launched their platform, it was a pay-as-you-go service. They would just automatically charge your credit card. Shortly thereafter, they changed kind of how their API works. So now, if you and there's like different tiers of API usage. I'm not an expert on this by any means. The only thing I want to call out here is if you are on a lower tier. So that would in order to get to a higher tier, you basically have had to have proven yourself kind of where like you're, I don't know, maybe a larger company that's been doing business with OpenAI for a while. But the lower tier, so you have a lower rate limit. And then more importantly, what you have to do is you actually have to pay upfront, basically buy credits, if you will, to actually use the API. So I think I have spent just like $20, and so you can see I've not hardly used anything at all here. And then even then, let's say I bought $500 in credits right now. What you can do is you can go into your budget here and say, or usage. I don't know. It's somewhere in here. But basically, what you can do is you can limit on how much okay, so you can see here, I don't have auto recharge turned on. But basically, if my credits fall below $5, I think I will get an email saying, hey, your credits are running low. And then if it goes to, if I set a hard limit of $10, if I've spent $10, then it just kills it completely. So that's nice in the sense that it's basically protection against you getting overcharged necessarily, or OpenAI kind of getting hosed too. So I would imagine that the reason that they put this in place is that they probably had people who were racking up giant bills and then defaulting on them, aka not paying them back. So I don't blame them at all for on people on the lower tier being required to basically buy credits. So anyway, so let's say I want to create a new API key. You can do it as part of your default project. I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here just to highlight this. And I actually am, as part of the stream, going to show the API key, which is a horrible, horrible, horrible no-no. You definitely don't want to do this. And I will tell you, I'm going to delete the API key immediately when this stream is done. So, and you're not even going to get yeah. I mean, so you can try to steal it, go ahead, but it's not going to do much because A, I'm going to delete it, and B, even if I didn't delete it, I have that hard cap on there. So I'm not going to lose too much money. So I'm going to call this, doc or state document generation project. We could call it whatever we want. All right, so I've created this new project. All right, now I can go into the API keys over here. So I've already got a couple API keys, and these are all hidden, so I'm not too worried. So if I go and want to create a new secret key owned by me, I could say I want it to be associated to this project. I'm going to call it stream key, just because, and then so we create the secret key. Now, this is the thing that I should not be showing you, and I don't even think you could see the full thing here anyway, but I'm going to go ahead and copy it, and I want to show you what I actually do with my API keys. So what I actually do, and I'm just going to call, so I have a folder in here off on the left, so you can see it's grayed out. It says keys, and the reason it's grayed out is because I'm using a gitignore file here to specifically say, do not push anything that is at in this keys directory, in the sensitive directory, to GitHub. And so that way, from my Python notebook here, I can actually reference the API key, push up the Python code, and you'll never see it. It's just going to be used behind the scenes. So just for today's purposes, I'm going to create a new folder here. I'm going to call it keys stream, like so. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. I think it's fine in there. Well, no, I'm going to move it to the top level. Sorry about that. All right, where is my keys? Did it move or not? Okay, it did not move. All right, let me just delete this. Sometimes the interface for VS Code's a little, okay, I don't like, all right, whatever. I'm just going to do it in the terminal. All right, so I'm going to do make dir keys stream. All right, there we go. And then I'm going to add a file in here called my API key.yaml. Okay, and I'm doing this intentionally as a YAML file, so then I can come in here and say OpenAI API key and then in quotes, I put my whole API key. Again, I'm going to delete this immediately after the stream is done. And if you didn't catch it just now, that's the last time you'll see it anyway. Unless somebody had a quick finger there and did a print screen, then you have free API credits up to $10 for the next 30 minutes or so. Okay, so the way that we load this in, so I'm going to load this in then. So I'm going to say with open. All right, so then we need to navigate up to the directory. So we need to go one up, and then we need to go to key/keys. What did I call it? Keys stream slash my API key.yaml rsf. All right, so yeah, I got API keys. I have a GitHub Copilot turned on for some autocomplete features, and it actually did what I wanted there. So that is why we imported YAML here. That's the only time I'm actually going to use this. This is just a thing that will allow us to load the API keys. And so then I said I wasn't going to show it again, but I'm going to just show it just because I don't. Oh, I got to run the code if that would help. All right, so you can see the whole API key is there. And so then if I wanted to reference the API, just the API key, I can say OpenAI API key, and boom, there's the whole API key right there. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that out. Yeah, so all right, so we have our API key. We have those loaded in. Now we need to set the chat model. So the chat model that we're going to be using today, just because I'm a little bit confused on something, to be honest. It is the billing of OpenAI these days. I don't really understand, so let's look for OpenAI API billing. Okay, so the thing that it's just super confusing to me anymore. Okay, that's not what I wanted. The API pricing. This layout is not, it's just kind of confusing me. So I see that we now have a 401 Nano and a 401 Mini. I think the 401 Mini might actually be the most, well, obviously this one's the most cost effective, but I wanna have something that's a little bit more, I guess, intelligent than Nano. But do I want to use this one? Maybe. All right, so then we have, so this is where it gets confusing. So it shows these, and then it comes down to here. It's like, all right, but it looks like this section is just for fine tuning specifically, and then you have the real time API, and that's confusing because what they mean by that real time, because you might be wondering, well, isn't this real time? Kind of. I mean, when they mean real time, they mean well, you can even see this is intended for speech to speech stuff, but I don't know, the verbiage on this site is just kind of confusing, and I can't tell anymore what is the cheapest. Oh, I didn't even see this button here. Oh, actually okay, I take it back. I didn't see this page before. Okay, this page is actually kind of helpful. All right, so we have Nano. All right, so output is $1.60. Which one's, all right, where is a 40 Mini? 40 Mini, 40 Mini, 40, oh wow, so okay, so 40 Mini is still cheaper than 41 Mini, and I'm satisfied with 40 Mini. So by the way, this besides performance, when I mean performance, I mean the intelligence of the model itself. The two biggest factors that I look for when selecting an LLM are price and latency. Latency being how fast it can return a response. So for example, the O3 model or the O1 Pro, oh my gosh, that is expensive. Oh my gosh. All right, so but the O1 Pro model is very slow, and the reason, but it's intentionally slow. It's slow because it's trying to do some extra thinking, extra reasoning, and such. And so that is why you wouldn't want to use this in something where you need a really, really fast response. Instead, I would recommend something like GPT-4o Mini for that. But it's a balance there. And then the secondary balance is then the cost. So that's what I'm trying to figure out is what is the cheapest model that I can use that is the most cost effective as well. And so for me in this case, I actually do believe it is GPT-4o Mini. Okay, so now let's go back to our code here. So now that we've ruminated on that a little bit, I'm gonna use the chat OpenAI object as such here. And so again, this is LangChain. So this is LangChain OpenAI. Excuse me, but if you use Anthropic or anything else like this, the setup is actually very similar. I think it would just be something like chat Anthropic. Well, I guess not. Yeah, chat Anthropic. And then basically you'd set your other parameters as you would we're about to set here. So the two parameters that we need to set, so we need to set our API key. So API key equals, so this is going to be our API keys, OpenAI API key, and then we need to set the model. Which model are we going to use? Model name equals GPT-4o mini. Okay, and we can set other parameters too, like temperature or whatever, but I'm not super concerned with that right now. And so, and just to verify that this works, so let's go ahead and say use it. And so the way that we use it, we just go invoke. This is a simple way to use it. We're going to show how to use chat prompt or LangChain prompt templates to actually make things a little bit simpler. So what is the, okay, I'm just doing the autocomplete there. What are the names of the first 10 U.S. presidents? So we have George Washington, John Adams, Thomas Jefferson, etc. So we can verify that this is indeed working as we would expect. Okay, so now when it comes to generating a corpus of documents, what we really need is structure. Structure in the sense that like we need to be able to like iterate over whatever. So in our case, like, so if you're just tuning in, we are going to build like a guidebook for like the US 50 states. So the first thing that I need is just a list of the 50 states. Now I could just go out to Google and try to find like a list in Google and like paste it in, and that's fine. We're going to use, or that's one way of doing it. We're going to use generative AI here because I can imagine situations where you would want a list of like different things that aren't necessarily public, if you will. So I don't know, a list of the top 10 condiments in the world. I don't know. I can't think of one off the top of my head. So the two forms of structured data that LLMs are very good at outputting, and I don't want to say that they can do more than just these two, but these are the two that we're going to use this stream specifically are lists. List as in Python list, so like an array of items, and then JSON. So JSON is basically this dictionary-like structure where you can have key value pairs. And so that's going to, and so how we're going to apply these both in these settings is we're going to use we're going to get a list of the states themselves to generate the list, and then we're going to iterate over that list in order to produce our blurbs that would represent each of our pages for the guidebook. And then later we're going to come back and I mentioned we're going to generate some trivia questions. So we're going to output the trivia questions as a JSON structure because remember, with the benefit of the JSON structure, we have the key value pair. So with the key value pairs, that first key will be question, followed by the value of whatever the question is, and then you have answer, and then you have whatever the answer is. And then having that structured form, you can do a whole lot with those sorts of trivia questions. Okay, and again, I like to save anytime I'm interacting with the LLM, I like to save my outputs as a cache. So when we generate the 50 states here, I'm going to go ahead and save that back to file. So that way, if I got to leave and I got to restart my notebook or whatever, I basically have the results cached locally, and I'm not having to go and spend money again or the time again to regenerate whatever content we're generating. Okay, so I'm going to create a chat state generation prompt. So this is just going to be our prompt template. So this is just going to be a string, a string in the sense that like a Python string. This is actually a doc string, which is why we have the 3 triple quotes here. So I'm going to say generate a list of the 50 U.S. states in alphabetical order separated by commas. Now, the one thing about LangChain specifically is you'll notice that we outputted this thing called this comma separated output parser. Hold on, let me review my notes here just really quick. Okay. Yeah, so this is as simple as I'm going to keep my prompt here. I'm just going to keep the prompt like this, and then I'm actually going to form a prompt template kind of around this. So the way that we're going to do that is first we need to set up our output parser. So I'm going to say output parser is going to be this comment separated list kind of thing. And then I'm going to set up the template. So state generation prompt template equals prompt template. All right, and so there's a number of variables that we can actually input here. So for this particular one, we are going to use the template, of course. So the template is going to be our state generation prompt template. And then there are two other variables that you can see. And then you can see GitHub Copilot is already trying to autofill for me. So you have your input variables, and then you have these things called partial variables. So input variables is pretty straightforward, and this will make a little bit more sense as we continue along the stream where, like, let's say as we're generating each of the blurbs, we're going to say, generate a blurb for me about the state of fill in the blank, and the fill in the blank, that's going to be our input variable. So that might be Illinois or Indiana or Montana or something like that. And then you have these other ones, and so we're not going to have any input variables here, but we are going to have a partial variable. And you might be wondering, well, what is a partial variable? And a partial variable in this context is I want to insert a variable at the time of this prompt template creation, but it is this variable is never going to change after like it's never going to change like after we instantiate this object. So in this particular case, I'm going to say format instructions, and you can see that it already auto-populated for me anyway. So associated to this output parser object, it does have special formatting instructions. And so then we can actually say, okay, we want this as such. And let me make sure I can run this. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. I've actually never used LangChain without input variables, but with partial variables, but it appears to be correct. So then the final piece here in order to complete our chain is just chaining these different pieces together. So we have our prompt template, we have our output parser, and then above we have our chat model. And so LangChain makes that super easy. So this is the piece where LangChain has really not changed much in the last couple of years. So state generation chain equals, so we need to, GitHub Copilot is already doing the work for me here. It kind of read my mind. So ignore that other part here. So this is our chain here. So we take our prompt template, following the chain of the path here. So we're gonna give it our template. We're gonna pass that into the chat model, and then we're gonna use our output parser to actually get a list of the results that we are expecting. Okay, so I am going to go ahead and I'm going to say state results equals state.invoke. Input equals okay. Oh, that's why. Sorry about that. Sorry, I've not actually used LangChain like this before. Inputs equals input results. Text equals, okay, so that's because it didn't use the chain. Okay, there we go. Now it did add a period at the end of Wyoming there. Okay, so you can see here that it did something that's a little bit goofy, and I see this from time to time, and that is where it actually added a little bit of extra text. So whenever it parsed this all out, we have the list of the 50 states, but then we have like this other goofy business going on. We can fix that quite simply just by updating the prompt to say, do not include any extra text nor punctuation. Punctuation. Okay, there we go. So I'm gonna change that, and then hopefully we'll get a different result back here that is more in line with what we're expecting. Okay, there we go. So let's just check the length of the len of the state results. And so we have all 50 states. All right, so that is our list of the states. So like I said, I like to save these out to a file. Although I've never saved out just a straight list. I'm trying to think what is the best way to do that. In fact, let's just ask Copilot, what is the most ideal file format for saving a Python list to reload later. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, I'm okay with that. All right. So it's gonna go ahead and write these results out to a JSON file. Okay. Okay. I did not realize that was okay. I'll accept that. So you can see we've written our results out. We have all of our 50 states. Now what I like to do is I'm gonna go ahead and remove this from here, and then I am actually going to, if os.path exists, if not, here, I'm just going to type it out, and then I'll explain what I'm doing here in a second. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and delete this object here, or this JSON file, just to show what this code block is doing. This code block, so again, we're using the this OS out library here. It's basically checking to see, does this file exist? And if it doesn't exist, go ahead and run this and then dump out the results. If it does exist, that's what this else clause is saying, then just go ahead and load the results. All right, so because I already deleted it, and let me go ahead and restart my kernel and everything just to show. I'm going to go ahead and rerun. Well, I'm not going to rerun this cell. We don't need to rerun that one, but let's go ahead and run all these cells. So it'll take a second here, but you should see the JSON file pop up back here. Okay, so that took 2.4 seconds. And that's just because it probably just took the LLM like a second or two. But you should see, if I were to restart and clear and run all again, that this last shell should run. Yeah, it basically ran in no time at all because it was just loading the local results here. Okay. All right, so now we have our local results. All right, so now that we have things in a Python list, now you can start to imagine this is simple list iteration. This is just going to be us working through each of the states in this list here to produce a result. So I'm actually going to create a new directory in here. I'm going to call it new folder state pages. All right, and this new folder is going to contain a file for each of our states. So I'm going to say sorry, I'm distracted. So, all right, we're going to iterate through. We're basically going to be doing the same thing. So let's set up our prompt template to make sure that we do what we want. And sometimes, so what I like to do, instead of like using the API and using up my credits, because I do have an OpenAI account, I like to actually just go into ChatGPT and like kind of test things out. And what I mean test things out is I'm going to say, because you can see, well, back in here, like when we created our list here, you saw that we actually had to add this extra little verbiage to not get it to say, here's the list of the names. Instead of doing that here and spending my API credits, I can just go back over into ChatGPT and kind of do the same thing. So I'm going to say, help me, or I want to create a state fact blurb sheet for a US state. Can you help me to come up with a good prompt template for this? Okay, and then what I like to do then is, because it's usually pretty good at producing a prompt template like this. This is probably even more so than I wanted. But then what I can do here is I can take this. All right. And then I can paste it back in here. And then you can see, I'm just going to replace this with the word Illinois. And then that way, instead of, because this is going to be basically our prompt template, instead of using our API and our API credits, I can actually look at like a sample output of what we can get here. And so based off of this prompt template, this is what we can expect. Now, for my particular purposes, I think this is fine, but I could have easily said that I didn't like how this was structured, that I just wanted a blurb about like a literal two paragraphs, because this is all bulleted and stuff, and this is all good. Actually, I actually kind of like how ChatGPT recommended it. But yeah, and so I'm actually going to stick with this. So I'm going to say I'm happy with this prompt template. So I'm going to bring this back over into VS Code over here, and I'm going to say state blurb generation, or I'm going to say state blurb prompt. I'm too lazy to write out generation. And then I'm going to say this. Now, the one thing here specifically with LangChain is that you need to ensure that your variable names are wrapped by curly braces. So I'm going to say state name. And yeah, I think that's good. So then I'm going to create a new prompt template. So I'm going to say state blurb prompt template equals prompt template. And look at that, it's already filling everything that we need in here. So we're going to put in our template so that it's going to be this big string that we put in above. Now this is where things are a little bit different than we have above. So in this case, above here, we did have our partial variable of like the output formatting instructions. We have no partial variables here because we're not asking for a very specific, we're not asking it to produce like a list or like a comma separated list or anything like that. So, but we do have an input variable here, and our input variable is going to be our state name. So now that we've go ahead and set that, and then we need to go ahead and create our new chain. So I'm going to call this state blurb chain, and you can see GitHub Copilot's auto filling in there for me. Apparently I spelled blurb wrong. Blurb. That word looks so weird to me. I almost said verb to me. So, all right, we have the state blurb chain. All right, so we have created that. And now we are ready to basically just iterate and plug and chug. All right, so like I said, so we're going to go for state name in state results. Oh, you can see that it's already, you know what? In fact, I'm going to rename this to state blurbs just because. Blurbs. GitHub Copilot's already kind of doing exactly what I want. So in fact, I'm just going to, but I don't care to load it. State blurb. No, I don't want to write it as a JSON file. I want to write these as markdown files. MD. All right, how did I write that? Let me check my stuff again. Response.content. Response. Okay, so I'm going to say f.write state blurb dot content. Okay, so let's walk through what this code is doing, and this is really all it is. It's okay. So we're basically going through each of the states, and it's checking to see if within our file here, which is currently empty, does the state blurb currently exist? And if it does not exist, then we are going to go ahead and invoke our chain here as such, and then we are going to write that content out as a markdown file. Now we could have chosen other different file formats. I'm just choosing markdown because that's what I like to use. But we could have done this other ways. And then we do have a print statement down here. We don't even necessarily know this. But let's go ahead and run it. So this will take a little bit. And then we could have even done things like parallelization, but then you might have run into like rate limiting issues. So this will definitely take a little bit. Okay, so you can see we've already got Alabama's coming rolling in. We got Alaska's rolling in. And yeah, so you can see I could just walk away right now, go get a coffee, or do some other work, and boom, like all these, imagine trying to do this with just like ChatGPT or the Anthropic UI directly. Like it would just be a big pain in the neck. But here we go. It's just going to keep rolling down the list here. And in fact, I'm almost tempted to stop it just because this isn't, I mean, this will probably take 5 minutes, which 5 minutes in the grand scheme of things is not a long time, but in Streamland, 5 minutes is a long time. So, okay. Let me see how much longer I want to have this continue going. Actually, you know what? I am curious. You know what? I'm going to kill this just to show because what's going to happen is here. Oh wait, I got to stop it from here. That's right. Stop. Interrupt. Okay, so I'm going to restart this entire thing. So we've already generated these first several. So if I rerun all these, what you'll see is very quickly, because we saw the print statement right here, it should just breeze right past all these because it's going to recognize that, oh, we've already got all these. Where is state blurb equals state blurb is not defined. Oh, yeah, that would be why. I'm going to just delete this out because I'm too lazy. All right, there we go. Might help if I put that other double quote at the end there. All right, there we go. Okay, so you can see it already breezed past through all these because it already generated all of these that are listed here. And so yeah, we have a bunch of documents now that we can continue working with if we wanted. And I actually am going to kill this here just because again, this is going to take a little bit. So that is one way of doing things. So so basically, again, recapping, we produced a Python list that we could iterate over, and then it was as simple as iterating over each of those states and then running a little bit of code, having a little check in there to make sure that the file doesn't already exist, so that way we're not rerunning things that we don't need to be rerunning, and we will call it a day there. So I'm going to go ahead and stop this. Interrupt. And I'm just going to go comment out this cell. If I remember my hotkeys. Okay, there we go. All right. So next up, we're going to, I want to produce some question answer trivia facts. Now, I'm trying to think of the best way to, well, what am I trying to say here? I learned yesterday that there is actually a JSON mode for producing outputs from OpenAI specifically. So let me demonstrate what I'm talking about. I actually saw this in the LangChain documentation. Okay, LangChain. Where is it? I'm trying to remember. JSON. I'm trying to remember. I'm looking for a specific page here because there was like a specific page that really showed this kind of well. How to leverage each of these models. Is that it? No. OpenAI. Give me just a second. Hopefully I'll be able to find this page. Where was it at? I should have saved it. API reference. LangChain. Well, shoot. There was one of these pages that actually showed a really nice table of like how like what are the different features of each like the models. And so like for example, it like some of these models can actually do a JSON mode. Here, I'm just gonna have to look for OpenAI's. All right, chat OpenAI. All right, how do I get JSON? JSON mode. All right, so here's JSON mode. So LLM.bind. Okay. So apparently this is how you do it, is basically you run this, you instantiate your chat model and you run this bind command. So I've never done this. The way I've done it before is just within the prompt template itself, just asking for a JSON object, and it usually does a pretty good job at that. However, I am interested in trying out this JSON mode just because I'm curious. All right, so I'm gonna take this code here. So I'm gonna say chat model JSON equals chat model dot bind response object. Okay, so basically my understanding is anytime we invoke this particular instance of the chat model now, we should be able to get a JSON object back. And so what I'm going to say, so I'm going to go back to ChatGPT again to help me create this basic prompt template and say, I am interested in creating a prompt template that will generate a trivia question or a set of trivia questions about the U.S. states. It will accept one state as an input each time. I want the output to be as JSON, where the keys are question and answer, respectively, and the values of those would be the trivia question and answer as generated by the AI. So okay, so this is perfect. This is exactly what I want here. So you can see it went ahead and generated this. So I'm going to go ahead and take this over. I'm going to call this, I'm going to call it state trivia QA prompt equals this now. I got to wrap it in triple quotes. Now, there's a little bit of a gotcha here. And so we have the state name here. The gotcha is that with LangChain, because we are using these curly braces to represent like an input variable name, then it also tries to recognize this as an input name. In fact, let me go ahead and just show exactly what I'm talking about, just to show the error that's going to happen. So I'm going to say state prompt template, state prompt, or state trivia QA prompt template. All right, so that's good. And then I'm going to set up the state trivia Q&A. All right, so then that's going to produce that. Yeah, let me go ahead and run that. Now I'm going to try invoking this directly. State trivia QA chain.invoke input, and we're just going to do it with the one state of California. Now watch what happens. So you can see here, it'll say input to the prompt template is missing the variables, and then you can see it's missing the question. And what's going on here is, like I was saying, so with the input variables, we have to, we use these curly braces, and it's getting confused by what are these curly braces going on here. So the way to get around that, I always have to look this up. I'm reading my notes. I always forget this part. I think it's just adding an extra curly brace to these things. Give me just a second. Did I not upload this correctly? Okay, I'm pretty sure it's just an extra curly brace that you need to add though. To both of these, and then it'll recognize it appropriately. All right, so I ran that. Now let's try to rerun this cell just to see if it'll work. State name, Mexico. Refusal. System. That is not at all what I wanted. Well, let's try this again, just out of curiosity. Okay, this time it did look like it actually produced it. I don't know why it didn't the first time. In fact, I'm going to just to analyze the response, let's call this response. All right, that way we can actually look at this. And I'm going to go ahead and rerun it again just to make sure. All right, so .content. JSON.loads response.content. Okay, so it did. It did a little bit of a funky thing where it added the state name at the top. So I only want the questions themselves, although like it would be super easy to parse this out. So I'm gonna add only include the trivia questions and answers, the trivia questions and answers. So let's see what happens if I add that here. Okay, so it's gonna insist on doing this. I mean, this is not a big deal, because like here I'm gonna say response JSON response JSON equals, all right, so response JSON trivia, because that's exactly what we want right here. This is this little blurb right here. Okay, so now that we've shown how basically we're going to be doing the same thing that we've done before. Like I've already basically shown you all the code. It's just basically now just list iteration. If I could say basically like 5 more times. So I'm going to create a new folder in here. I'm going to call it state trivia. All right. And then I am going to say for state name in state results, I'm going to say in state results, if not, except it's not going to be, so I actually am going to save these as JSON files. So I'm going to say if that file does not exist, then state trivia equals, and then state trivia JSON equals JSON.loads content, and then we only want the trivia, and then we're gonna say we want to write this out. State trivia JSON with open. Okay, I think that's good. Let's go ahead and run it and see what happens. Trivia. Okay. Trivia. JSON content. This is horrible naming, but we're gonna roll with it because I'm, all right. Trivia. Okay, for some reason it's doing this weird thing where like the model just is kind of almost like confused. I'm almost tempted to take it out of the JSON mode. Yeah, I am actually going to take it out of this JSON mode, and I'm just going to use the standard JSON model because apparently JSON, again, that's the very first time I've tried to use the OpenAI JSON mode. I don't know why it didn't work ideally. So let's just try this the standard way without the JSON mode. Dot content. All right. JSON.loads. Let's wrap that to see. Okay, so that actually outputted better without using the JSON mode. Okay, so I can take this part out here, and then just go to this. So then this should actually work better. Okay, so apparently I'm gonna chuck that up to me being stupid, like that I don't necessarily know how that JSON mode works. But this is the way that we just did it up here is the way that I'm typically used to doing it, is just doing it as part of the prompt here. So as we go into here, you can see we've got questions and answers associated to Alabama. We got Arizona. Am I on Arizona? What? Okay. What? This, I'm so confused right now. Why is it giving, what is the capital of, what does my prompt template say? My prompt so apparently we're just getting like hallucinations here, because like I'm looking here, let's go look at Illinois. What is the capital of Texas? Why is it coming up with like, this is so random. I have no idea why it's doing this. All right. I'm gonna halt this because apparently there's some funny business going on here, but like from a systems perspective, everything is going well. There are two problems that could be the root here. Number one is that we're using 4.0 mini, and maybe it's just hallucinating that it's 4.0 mini, or maybe it's just because there is there's like some sort of what am I trying to say here? It's that the prompt template itself is getting hooked up on this and is just trying to, yeah, so all questions should only be about do not provide questions about any other states or general use of trivia. Okay, so I wonder if that'll help. I'm going to go ahead and delete out all these. But it flew through those. You can see it got through a good chunk of that list. All right, so let's try this again. That is so strange. This is one of the strangest things I've ever seen. Why it? Okay, let's try this again. Let's just see what happens again. For state and state results, the QA chain. Like, is there some sort of? Huh. Well, let's see. I am just floored. I'm so confused why it's doing this. It's got to just be a hallucination, right? Yeah, because it's getting the questions right, but it's getting them like the content completely wrong. It's like, yeah, with Connecticut here we're looking at Oregon. Like, why are we now looking at Oregon? That makes no sense to me. Montana, Colorado, what? All right, I'm curious again. All right, so I'm. This seems just like a crazy model hallucination. Okay, so I'm gonna stop this again. Let's go ahead and delete all this. I'm gonna see how it performs with GPT 4.0 and see if we get better results. I know this is gonna be a little bit more costly, but it's frustrating that we're getting all these strange hallucinations in here. All right. Okay, so let's try this now with GPT 4.0. It's gonna be a little bit slower, but might end up being worth it. Very strange. Very, very strange. All right, so wow. More California, more Alabama. Illinois. Print. All right, so all right, it's doing Kansas, it's doing Kentucky. Do I just I have no idea. This is the strangest thing I've ever seen when working with an LLM like this, and I've never had a problem with it like this. So I've always had good results trying to do this kind of thing, and we obviously had good results when we were generating the state blurbs because these are all correct. Like, I mean, let's just pull Kansas here out of random. Yeah, this is correct. Man, that is mind-boggling to me. I really don't understand why it's doing this. Now this one's just a straight up hallucination. What's the state and the capital of? Yeah, that's a straight up hallucination right there. Okay, so I'm gonna just have to chalk this up to model hallucinations, but it's just strange, huh? But now you can see, like, I promise I have never had this issue before. I like now granted, all of my code works. I don't see anything wrong with my code, and like I said, I've used this in other contexts. In fact, that's the one thing I wanted to share here. Is with this project over here. So this is actually a data set that we're going to be working with going forward. I just called this the generic corp data set. So it's a generic corporation because basically, like, I want to get back into RAG associated things. So I started to generate a bunch of documents associated to this fake company. And I did it using the exact same tactics we're doing in this stream. So if you look here, you can see all of the sorts of things associated to this fake company with their internal tools. And in fact, I actually have uploaded this as well to Hugging Face. Now it's not perfect yet because I'm still kind of working on it. Oops, I didn't mean to click sign up. I meant to click log in. Okay, log in. All right, where's my data sets? How do I look at my data sets? There we go. The generic, already 42 downloads. Wow. Okay. So yeah, I created this. Wow, that is flooring to me because I just uploaded this like 5 days ago and I have not publicized it at all. Wow. Okay. So yeah, you can see all of these things that I went ahead and created in here. So within future streams, this is exactly why I did today's streams, is the setup for future streams. And in future streams, I want to get back to RAG. We're gonna, in fact, let's go ahead and start wrapping up today's stream. The first thing that I want to do, of course, is I want to go back and delete this API key that we are no longer using. So let's go ahead and do that. So I actually do have this saved as a bookmark. I just wanted to show how you'd get to it from the basic site. So I'm going to go over into here, my settings, API keys, and stream key. This one that I created today, boom, gone. Revoked. All right, so if you caught it earlier, sorry, no longer can use. But yeah, that basically wraps up today's stream. So like I was showing with that generic corp data set is I want to get back to RAG stuff, and I specifically within one of these next upcoming streams here is talk about latent space of vector embeddings. And what I mean by that is like, so when you create, when you take these documents that you want to use in a RAG context, you vectorize them with an embedding model, and it turns it into a fixed length vector of numbers, which we can then compare to, use mathematical operations and compare them to other documents that way. And we can even do feature reduction sorts of things on it to reduce the dimensionality of these vectors, all to be able to actually literally visualize it onto a space. And then you can actually see how close are these documents in space. And then actually can be really helpful to understand is, because if all your documents are embedded in like the same latent space, then trying to get the most similar it'd be like the equivalent of like trying to imagine you have like a sack of bouncy balls and you try to reach in and you wanted to grab the blue one out. It would be kind of hard to do that in just like a giant sack. But if we threw them out all over the floor, then we could look and boom, there's the blue one down there. I can go and pick it up. That's what the idea of like trying to analyze these embedding spaces is, because we can, with these embedding spaces, then we can kind of understand, okay, are our documents too close together? How can we refactor these documents to increase the latent space of the embeddings? But I'm getting ahead of myself. That's another stream. But anyway, we are, we're done here for today. So I hope you all learned something. Hope you found this a little bit valuable. It was a little bit of a review stream today, but review is not always bad. So hope you all have a good weekend, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you.